Speaking of head coach hires, Nick, we have to get into this Dan Campbell press conference with the Detroit Lions. In case you missed it, the Lions are hiring, as we said, Dan Campbell, tight ends coach with the New Orleans Saints. He was also, I believe, interim coach for the Miami Dolphins for a time a few years back. He is the new head coach of the Detroit Lions. In his introductory press conference today, he talked about biting off kneecaps and something about tying that in with the culture of the city of Detroit. Nick, I don't even know where to start on this guy, to be honest, but I'm really hoping that somehow, some way we could get Hard Knocks into the Lions locker room for this year, because that press conference was maybe unlike anything I have ever seen. That was insane.
Well, I think there was a biting kneecaps reference. There was I'll kick you in the teeth one time and then you'll punch us back and then we'll kick you in the teeth again. There were some really interesting statements that were made by Dan Campbell. I don't know that if I were a Lions fan, of course I'm not, that I'd be thrilled when the new head coach of the organization sets up at his press conference and says, well, I told my agent to say that I was really this hot college coach that people might want, pretend like I'm him or make it seem like I'm him so they won't realize that I'm really the candidate that's here. I mean, I understand the humor behind it, but at the same time, it's like, yeah, well, yeah, I think Detroit would have preferred Matt Campbell over you. That's the harsh reality of it. I don't know that I've ever heard a incoming head coach swear at his opening press conference. I don't know that I've ever heard that, but he did. He did, and that was he is. You talk about Robert Saleh being a football guy. Dan Campbell is the football guy. He is as football gets. Of course, a former tight end for the Detroit Lions. It was just such a curious hire for me. I'm fascinated to see how that one goes, just because they're at least, I will give Detroit this, trying something very new. It is different from what they have been trying for years upon years to get that franchise turned around. It's just when you look at the scope of that, I don't know how they ever walked away from Jim Caldwell, but they did, and Patricia was a disaster, and now they are hoping that somehow this guy, who may or may not be able to get players to run through a brick wall, all the stuff that he says at his press conference is great until you start losing football games. If he can find a way to win, I'm sure they'll get the player buy-in, but that's going to be, I think, an uphill battle for Detroit going forward, especially when you've got Aaron Rodgers in your division playing as well as the Packers are right now.
Yeah, and it's funny. I saw a tweet. Now, I don't know if this is real or not, but that they have the placard outside of his office.
Yeah,
and
it's
it says,
real. I'm pretty sure. Yeah.
Oh, let's go. So it's Dan Campbell, head coach / the dude. I mean, I have a hard time from the outside taking that seriously. But imagine being in the building, especially if you're a guy like Matt Stafford, right? Matt Stafford played for Jim Caldwell and first for Jim Schwartz, but most of his years, I don't want to say most of his years, but the most of any head coach he's had with Jim Caldwell, right? Serious, respectable guy, kind of quiet, but stern, commanded the respect of the locker room. And then you go to Matt Patricia, who was horrible, as you said. And then you go to this. I don't even know how you rationalize that as somebody who's been so loyal to that franchise for however many years. I think now this would be year 13 coming up in 21. As somebody who sat there and said, you know what, I've poured my life into the Detroit Lions, basically, and they're going to turn around and hire a guy who's going to put the dude on the placard outside his office. I just, if I was him, I would be upset right now. Like, as much as we joke about biting off kneecaps and the things that have come out of Dan Campbell's mouth since he got hired as the coach of this team, if I'm somebody in that position, I would be very mad right now that this is what they wound up hiring. And maybe it works out. I don't know. But my money right now is on that it will not.
I don't disagree with you. And we talk about Deshaun Watson all the time asking for a trade. I wouldn't be shocked if Matthew Stafford tried to follow that route. There was also some reporting that mentioned that he might want to try, or rather the Lions were going to try and engineer a trade for him regardless. It wasn't going to be a Matt Stafford thing, that they may look at starting over. I don't know that if I were the Detroit Lions, would be in the business of trading the best player on my roster right now. I don't know that that's ever a good thing, particularly when I don't know that your return for him is going to be outstanding. Just because of the way things have gone, I don't think you're certainly selling low in that situation with how things ended with Matt Patricia and everything that went on there. So I don't know that I'd be in the business of making that move. We'll see if they do, but it's got to be a tough sell for Matthew Stafford. I'm with you 100% there, because he has been one of the guys who I think is certainly underrated in how good he's been the last decade in the league. And they have made the playoffs one time just because there has been nothing around him. And this is an organization that has really struggled to get things right at times. And they were on their way with Caldwell. Again, I don't mean to circle back to that, but that's just such a big part of the Detroit Lions story before they go after Matt Patricia, and things had just been so downhill when you had success. And he makes the playoffs at, I think it was 11-5, and then misses them at 9-7. Would the Lions love to get back to 9-7 right now? They're in a rough spot. We'll see how Dan Campbell works out.